when I made my very first video about AI back in November of 2023. I titled it A Human Eye on AI. At that time, it felt more like an intention than a clear statement. I didn't yet know what that statement would demand of me. I only knew that I wanted to explore AI without losing sight of everyday life, of ethics, and the human side of the work. Looking back now, after everything I made since then, what surprises me the most is not how much everything has changed, but how much that initial instinct stayed intact. This is not a year in review. I'm not gonna recap tools or discuss trends. This video is a reflection of what working closely with AI over time actually taught me. In 2024, most of my work was tutorials and ethical discussions. I was trying to understand what these tools were capable of, how people were using them, and where the real questions were hiding behind the excitement. At that stage, tutorials were not about mastery. They were about orientation. I needed to see the landscape clearly before I could decide where I wanted to stand. Those early videos helped me build a vocabulary, not just the technical language, but a way of thinking critically about AI without fear or blind optimism. In early 2025, something shifted. I became less interested in what AI could produce and more interested in how it spoke, especially large language models. So I started experimenting with voice inside ChatGPT. What happens when you stop asking for answers and instead start shaping perspective and tone and intent? That curiosity led to what later became the VoiceCraft method, not as a product or a framework to teach, but as a way for me to think more clearly about authorship, consistency, and meaning. Voice in communication with AI stopped being a surface detail. It became the core. By July this year, VoiceCraft had taken shape because it had to. The work was becoming more complex, and intuition alone wasn't enough anymore. I needed a method that could hold intention steady while everything else kept changing. A way to make decisions about voice that felt grounded instead of reactive. And unexpectedly, that work did not just shape how I used and communicated with AI. It also sharpened my own writing voice. By defining voice so clearly for a system, I was forced to become clearer about my own tone, rhythm, and perspective as a writer. This was not about sounding unique. It was about being deliberate. And in September, something important happened. Once I had a clearer picture about voice and communication with AI, I started applying it outside of the large language models, beyond text, for images, prompts, in Midjourney, in Nano Banana, in different models and different systems. That's when my work became truly multi-AI. Not because I wanted to use more tools, but because I wanted the same intention to carry over every tool I used. The question stopped being which model is the best. It became whether the work still sounded and looked like it knew why it existed. By November, tutorials no longer felt sufficient. I found myself more interested in showing what happens when you actually use these tools over time, when things break, when assumptions fail, when you have to make decisions without clear instructions. That's when experiments replaced explanations. This was also when I built my first apps using AI. Not because I planned to, but because I needed. And by building them, I learned more about AI as a collaborator than I could have ever done through isolated demos. The biggest surprise wasn't how powerful AI became, it was how much clarity it demanded from me. AI didn't solve my creative problems, it exposed them. The more capable the tools became, the more intentional I had to be about voice, structure, and responsibilities. Speed stopped being impressive. Thoughtfulness became essential in the work. There are a few things I no longer believe after working this closely with AI. I don't believe that faster is always better. I don't believe that more tools automatically leads to better work. And I don't believe that automation removes responsibility. If anything, responsibility, personal responsibility concentrates. I still believe in curiosity. I still believe in learning together. And I still believe that staying human in this space takes an active effort. I plan to keep using AI, but not in ways that let it rush me, flatten me, or decide for me. I want to work with these tools without letting them quietly use me in return. A human eye on AI was never meant to be a conclusion, it was a starting point. Everything I have learned since then has simply taught me what that perspective actually asks of me: more patience, more clarity, and a willingness to take responsibility for what I choose to build and share. And as I am closing out this year, I keep coming back to something I'm still thinking about. As these tools become more capable, I notice how much more intentional I have to be about what I stay responsible for. Not just what I make with AI, but also about how it shapes my thinking, my voice, and where my attention goes. I don't think there is one right answer to that, but it feels like a question worth sitting with.